reading fiction like that, while it's not completely pointless, it's close.
We are going to change the way that we go about reading fiction books.
We've talked about how we recognize it's important for writers or budding authors to read the kind of fiction that we intend to write. And we've been doing that. We've talked about it for a while, but we're going to change the way that we do that.
Yeah, we've realized that the strategy that we have had for reading has not been as effective as we want it to be. One of the things that kind of prompted this discussion between us before filming this is I had an observation about the books that I've been reading lately, and I realized that there were certain times where I was tempted to skip over small portions of what was being written. Never really more than one page, typically closer to like a quarter or half a page worth. And most of the times that this occurred was when I knew what the next thing was going to be that happened, and I wanted to get there. And there was just some brief interlude that was written between what just happened and what was going to happen next. And it was just short enough that I felt like I could reasonably skip it without missing anything important. And then I want to get to the part that I want to see what happens next, or I want to see how somebody reacts to something that just happened. And I was trying to tell you about it and describe, here's an example. And I realized I couldn't really remember any specific examples. I had like general ideas of here's roughly the type of thing that was going on, but I couldn't remember anything specific, and I never notated it anywhere in the book, so there was no easy way for me to go back and look and see, okay, yeah, here was one of those things, without having to like reread entire chapters to find where one of those was. So going forward, reading that book, what I want to do differently is read with this by me while I am reading, so I can mark and notate, here is one of those times where I felt tempted to skip.
And I found very similar when I first started reading science fiction and fantasy in earnest for the sake of learning the skill. I would mark things and I would highlight, and then I started borrowing other people's books and didn't really want to risk putting anything in there. And then other books, I got so caught up in the story that I stopped paying attention to the craft, or I would notice craft, but I wouldn't necessarily highlight it or make any kind of a reference there to be able to find it again. And reading fiction like that, while it's not completely pointless, it's close, or at least closer than we want it to be. So I agree with Nathan. I have my own little set of little sticky flags somewhere, and I also intend to be more deliberate once I get back into I'm off reading something else right now, but once I'm back into reading the kinds of fiction that I want to write, I also intend to get back into highlighting, flagging with things that I want to be able to mimic, things that I also want to be able to avoid.
Now, I know in the past, some of the books that you've marked, you've used multiple different colors of flags, and each color meant something different. Do you remember what those colors meant?
Well, let me jump off. So here's the list of flags. We get it. These are available at the dollar store, but there's lots of different colors here, and I don't necessarily have a specific meaning for each color, but generally the red-ish colors are often, when it's a nonfiction book, it's something that I may disagree with or something I may take issue with, but it would be something that I want to avoid. The green is, hey, this is very good. Blue, purple-ish in that region is, ooh, this is really insightful. This makes me think. And in the orange or yellow range, it's, this was either kind of an interesting piece or this is a little bit of a caution. So it's not really necessarily very specific, but just kind of mood level colors.
And you have a lot of colors there. I only have 4 in this sheet, I'll still need to figure out exactly how I want to use those colors to describe, to indicate different things. I think the obvious is one for something that I like, or I want to mimic, one for something I want to avoid. But there might be some more details in there of, oh, this is a passage I skipped over, or oh, I didn't like how this was worded, or I really liked the way this was worded and the emotions it made me feel. So I'll need to figure out what language I want to create with these sticky notes. But I think reading like that is more beneficial really for 2 reasons. One, it forces me to think more about what I'm actually reading. And then when there are those things that I want to mimic or I want to avoid, I can easily go back and look at them rather than, oh, well, there was something like this and I don't remember exactly what it was, but here's a general idea.
I think you just brought up something that's really important there. And it's much like in business when you're trying to make plans for something, the idea that planning is important even if the plans don't survive. In the same way, the discipline that this strategy brings to the act of reading is most of the benefit, even if we don't ever go back and re-research what those flags meant.
Same thing with like taking notes during a lecture. It forces you to pay attention even if you never go back and look at those notes. But that is our strategy, how we are going to change the way that we approach reading in a way that's going to be more beneficial to us, especially as writers. So our question for you is, what is your strategy for getting value out of reading fiction? Let us know in the comments, and we will see you in 2 weeks.